I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker today, and with my understanding that it's better to precede him on stage than to follow him, I'm particularly appreciative of that honor. Widely known as Bill Gates' favorite teacher, our speaker today is going to share with us his journey from being a family tutor to an education pioneer in the digital age. A former hedge fund analyst with degrees from both MIT and Harvard, he founded a nonprofit with the modest mission of providing a free, high-quality education to anyone, anywhere in the world, consistent with the theme of this summit. A one-man faculty, he reaches millions of students every month through his online library of educational videos. In the process, he's changing the very way the world looks at education itself. So please join me in welcoming Sal Khan.
So as was introduced, Khan Academy is most known for this collection of videos that I started really producing for my cousins, and I'll talk more about that. But before I go any further, and I want to emphasize in this talk that we aren't just about videos. Actually, most of what we're doing actually isn't just videos. We're doing a lot more. But before I go any further, just so that we're all on the same page, I want to show a little bit of a montage so you have a sense of what the Khan Academy videos look like.
So the hypotenuse is now going to be 5. This animal's fossils are only found in this area of South America, a nice clean band here, and this part of Africa. We could integrate over the surface, and the notation usually is a capital sigma. National Assembly, they create the Committee of Public Safety, which sounds like a very nice committee. Notice this is an aldehyde, and it's an alcohol. Start differentiating into effector and memory cells. A galaxy. Hey, there's another galaxy. Oh, look, there's another galaxy. And for dollars is their 30 million plus the $20 million from the American manufacturer. If this does not blow your mind, then you have no emotion.
That's I can always tell the degrees in the audience based on which ones get the giggles. But there's I saw some of y'all know your French history. That was very good. And Euler's identity. Very good. So now, if we, Khan Academy, the site, this is what it looks like. Actually, this is what it looks like as of a few months ago. I make a lot of web designers cringe by putting 2,800 links on one page. But there are now videos on everything from basic addition all the way to vector calculus and immunology and the French Revolution and economics and finance. And it's been a kind of a crazy ride. We're now reaching about 3.5 million unique students a month. They're watching about 300,000 videos a day. But what I want to start talking about is, and I think we've had on the order of 80 million total lessons delivered. So it's been kind of crazy. But what I want to talk about is how all of this got started. It was literally 2004. I was as was introduced, I was an analyst at a hedge fund in Boston at the time. And I had family visiting me from New Orleans, which is where I grew up. And one of my cousins, Nadia, was with her family. And super smart girl, chat with her about anything. She knew about everything. And 12 years old. And I was showing her around the universities, and we actually had visited MIT, and I was telling her and her family, I was like, hey, you know, Nadia, I think you have what it takes. You have that analytical mind. You should really think about becoming maybe an engineer or going to MIT or something like that. And you know, everyone was kind of nodding, and I saw her mom give a weird little look right when I said that. I didn't know how to interpret that. And the next morning, while we were having breakfast, her mom said, this is Najrat Auntie, said, you know, Sal, it's really tremendous that you're kind of like this older brother figure for my children, and I love that you have so much confidence in Nadia. But the reality is that she's actually having trouble in math. That she just took a placement exam, and she goes to a pretty good school in New Orleans. But in that placement exam, she got tracked into a slower math class. And you know, my reaction, I was like, well, you know, that's hard to believe. That the girl who I've been talking to for the last couple of days, she's brilliant. She's, you know, I think she could be an advanced math student. And you know, not to mention that we also shared a certain amount of DNA. It seemed a little hard to fathom. so when Nadia woke up, I asked her, I was like, what's going on? And she said that she just didn't get units, that, converting kilometers to centimeters or whatever else. And I immediately told her, I was like, Nadia, just some of the conversations I've had with you over the past few days are 10 times deeper than the idea of converting units. And I'm convinced, if you're willing to try, that if we work together a little bit, we can get you past that hurdle. And so why don't you go back to New Orleans, and if you want to do this, we'll do some remote tutoring. We'll get on a speakerphone. We'll figure out if there's something on the internet so that we can maybe see each other's writing or something like that. And she agreed. And this is fall of 2004. And she went back. We worked at it for about a couple of months. It was a little painful at first, but eventually she started to get it. And we got her to take retake the placement exam at her school, and she was able to track into the advanced math class. Then I started tutoring some of her brothers, a couple of other cousins, and by about the fall of 2006, I had a cohort of about 15 to 20 family members around the country that I was tutoring, kind of as a hobby. It was actually a very awkward conversation sometimes. I would call up these like long lost, cousins of my mom and said, hey, I heard you have a 12-year-old, can I tutor them? And they thought it was a little shady. But I was doing that, and actually I'd started on a primitive version, and I'll show you the less primitive version, or actually the professional version of the software. But I did that at a very early stage, because even in those early tutoring sessions with Nadia, she was a motivated student. She had done well most of the way through her education up to that point. But I always felt like there were these little gaps in her knowledge. I would tell her, -3 plus 5. And she would say, 2? And I was, are you sure? And it was always this hesitancy. Even things that you would normally cover in second or third grade, it just felt like she was just 90% sure, 80% sure. And so I wanted to really just give her a question generator so that she could get an unlimited amount of practice on any of these concepts so that she really, really learned to master it, and then we could build off of that stronger foundation. And then, so I did this little JavaScript thing, and it was fun for me. I was an analyst at a hedge fund, but my background is in computer science, so it was a little way for me to use that part of my brain. And so I built this thing for her and for the other cousins. And then during our tutoring sessions, I'd ask them, I was like, oh, did you do the problems? How many did you get right? And they'd say, oh, yeah, I did them, and I think I got most of them right. And then I didn't believe them. So then I put a database behind it. And to keep track of it. So this is kind of this, and I kept doing more and more concepts. And this was about, now we're going into about the fall of 2006. And it was the fall of 2006 that I was showing off this software that I was building for my cousins. I was showing this to a friend out here in the valley. We had moved out to Palo Alto by this point. And I was saying, this is cool. It generates as many problems as a student needs. If they need a million negative numbers problems, it'll give a million negative numbers problems. It doesn't move a student forward until they've mastered a concept, so they don't have these gaps in their knowledge. But I said, the only thing that I'm having trouble with right now is the software scales, but I don't scale so well. That even with these 20 cousins, I'm having trouble coordinating time. I'm having trouble, even when I get 2 or 3 cousins in on the conference call with me, it's not as productive as it was when it was just me and Nadia or me and Ali. And so my buddy just said, well, why don't you just put some videos on YouTube of your lectures? And I was like, no, not YouTube. YouTube's for cats playing piano. It's not for serious mathematics. But I remember I went home that weekend and I thought about it a little bit. I got over the idea that it wasn't my idea, and I decided to give it a shot. And a whole series of interesting things started to happen from that day. I made a small collection of videos. It was kind of pre-algebra. It was the least common multiple, adding and subtracting fractions, a couple of videos like that. And I pointed my cousins to it, and I said, let me know what you think. And I joke a lot about this, but it's true. The first feedback I got from my cousins was that they liked me better on YouTube than in person. And it's very counterintuitive that someone would like an automated version of their cousin to their cousin. Well, actually, for some cousins, that might actually make a lot of sense. But in this case, it actually makes a lot of sense, because now my cousins could pause and repeat me. They didn't have to feel embarrassed if there was some concept that they were a little foggy on from 3rd or 4th grade and they didn't want to bring it up with their cousin because maybe I might judge them. I might say, oh my God, you don't know that concept from the 3rd or 4th grade? And so now they can do it at their own time, at their own pace. And then the other thing, and this is, I think, something that's not reflected on well enough, I think, is when you have to coordinate people and you say, okay, we're all going to meet at 5 o'clock Eastern and we're going to get together, or we're going to meet at Tuesdays, Thursdays at this lecture hall, not everyone is at their A game at that time every time. And you have to set that calendar so that we can all get in the room together. But, you know, maybe one day when we had our tutoring session, Nadia might have, maybe she was having another exam. Maybe the boy that she was hoping would ask her to the prom asked somebody else, and she just wasn't thinking about it. And maybe I had a tough day at work. And so now she could, and any of my cousins could get the concepts at their own time, at their own pace. And what it did is it actually made, I still did the tutoring sessions with them, but it just made our tutoring sessions 10 times more productive because I didn't have to give that initial lecture. I didn't have to repeat those concepts. We could just go straight to their questions. We could go straight to that deeper level of learning. The other thing that was kind of amazing, I put it out there, I put it on YouTube. You kind of hope when you put it out there that someone else will use it. And I did click refresh a lot to see if anyone did. I'm more insecure than I might appear. And sure enough, soon enough, you know, one of these videos is like 20 views, and I only told 8 cousins to watch it. So someone else is looking at these things. And then the comments started to come in. And some of the comments, and I don't know if y'all have spent a lot of time on YouTube, but most of the comments are neither positive nor G-rated on YouTube. But these were. Immediately, people started saying thank you, or this helped me on my algebra exam, or this really helped me on my calculus exam. But then I started getting letters that kind of took it to the next level, and I brought a few. These are some of the early letters that I had gotten, and these are the things that kind of convinced me that there's something more going on here than just, you know, a guy making videos for his cousins. And so this is just a few of them, and now we actually get hundreds of these a week now. So these are just a couple of comments. And this first one I find really interesting because I always get this question, and we could talk about it later today about, you know, well, does this work for motivated or unmotivated kids or things like that? And this comment that we got very early on kind of shows that who we think are motivated and not motivated might not be clear if you give them all a chance to learn and build their foundation. So this is a comment I got. Sir, I would just like to thank you for helping me rediscover mathematics. There was a point in my life where I despised math to the point that I no longer wanted to try. Thanks to your down-to-earth teaching style and enthusiasm, I've gone from struggling with math to being one of the best calculus students in my class. My newfound mathematical confidence has convinced me to pursue a career in engineering. Thank you. This is this is just another one, and I don't want to do a little bit too. I don't want to toot my horn too much. I just wanted to put. I started watching your math videos with my kid last summer, and since then he's raised a full grade and seems to be on the verge of advanced. So thank you so much. And so just that enough, you know, I was, as an analyst in a hedge fund, you're not used to a lot of people saying thank you and that you've changed their life for. But then I started to get these, and these were real. You know, this is a letter that I got May 29th, 2009. Hello, Sal. My 12-year-old son Ethan has autism and has had a terrible time with math. We have tried everything, viewed everything, bought everything, and bought is in caps. Well, we stumbled across your video on decimals and it got through. Then we went to dreaded fractions. Again, he got it. He could not believe it. He was so excited. It's your soothing voice and calm manner. Coupled with an easygoing explanation and examples. I cannot thank you enough. You're a hero. I had all but given up on math with him. I am homeschooling 2 children, both with challenges, both who respond well to you. You are their magic math teacher. I emailed your video clips to everyone I know who are in similar situations to my own, and there are many of us. Thank you so much, and God bless. Allison Petrosia. And you know, this is kind of it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're living in a reality that I might be, you know, shaving or taking a shower at dinner with friends, and there's a kid whose life is hopefully being altered in a good way. And you know, this is just another one along the same lines. I don't know who you are, but in my mind, you're a savior. You know, it's not a light word. My children really struggle with math. There's an inherited learning disability in my family. They get it, but only after seeing it done multiple times. Your videos will allow us to help our children get caught up with their peers. As a parent, I have to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Paul and Jennifer Pickett from Murray, Utah. So started getting a bunch of these, and so I just started getting addicted to it. You know, my wife will tell you I am a sucker for positive feedback, and so these helped. And so I kept making them, and there was a couple of unintuitive things that started to happen. Is that, you know, I would show people these videos that I was producing, and the immediate feedback I would get, especially, you know, my buddies in Silicon Valley and all the rest, they say, oh, you know, this is nice, this is cute, Sal, and everything, and those are nice letters and comments you're getting, but there's no way that this is ever going to scale. Content does not scale. And I agreed with them, because, you know, if you're doing a blog or if you're doing you do have to keep generating content, and there's no way, you know, surely there's no way to do all of K through 12 mathematics or science and all the rest. But what they, and what I didn't realize at the time is that that's true for most content, except for this content. This content is evergreen. I mean, I joke, if Isaac Newton had made YouTube videos on calculus, I wouldn't have to. And we don't know. He might have been. We don't know if he was good or not. I mean, we don't know what he sounded like. But we can. There's some reason to believe he was a little eccentric and not as mainstream as. And it became obvious once I did, you know, 50 or 60 or 70 videos on algebra. It's like, you know, that's algebra. It's kind of done. And then I did, well, what about trigonometry? Another 60, 70 videos. Now there's 400 videos on algebra, and there's 200 something on trigonometry. I was like, you know, that's a pretty good scaffold of trigonometry. And so then I just kept going, and I kept adding more and more videos, and then you saw all the variety that's there now. The other non-obvious thing that started happening, sure, we got these letters from homeschoolers. That seemed kind of obvious. Kids who were using it as a supplement. But it wasn't clear to me how this would be used, or whether it could be used in an actual formal setting. And then I got letters from teachers, real teachers, saying, look, you've already given a lecture on L'Hopital's rule, or you've already given a lecture on the mean value theorem, or on the least common multiple. So now I as a teacher don't have to give that lecture anymore. And so these teachers, just with YouTube essentially, or just with video, did something very simple but very profound. These teachers said, look, why don't I let the lectures happen at kids' own time, at their own pace, at home, or maybe sometimes at the computer lab, or whenever they can do it, and then they can pause and repeat it and review things without feeling embarrassed. And then why don't I have them do what used to be homework in the classroom? And so instead of going home and trying to go through some problem sets, and, you know, if you're lucky, you might have an older sibling or a parent who can help you out, but most students don't have that. And now, if you're doing those problem sets in the classroom, you have the teacher there who can help you out. Actually, instead of giving you a broadcast lecture, he or she can actually sit next to you and actually work through that problem with you. And you have your peers to help you out. And so not only do you get that help, but you know, we all know when you actually teach a subject, you learn it that much deeper. And it also, and this is something I want to talk about more as we go through this talk, is it, for the first time, was giving these teachers information about how well the students were understanding the material before the exam. Right now we have this reality, and we've all taken it for granted because it's what we were all brought up in, is that we fix the time that we have to learn something. So we have 2 weeks to cover adding and subtracting negative numbers. And at the end of the 2 weeks, the variable is how well we know it. I might get 95%, you might get 80%, someone over there might get 70% right. And then we move on to the next concept. And that assessment is really just viewed as kind of some type of a judgment on us, a value judgment on how smart you are. And whether or not that's valid, and I'll show later on that there's some reason to believe that that's not valid, it's kind of a crazy way to build a foundation of knowledge. If you were building a house and the inspector came and said, yeah, the first floor is only 80% sound, you would not go and then build the second floor without improving that first floor. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're saying that a student has a 20% deficiency in multiplying 3-digit numbers, and then we say, okay, too bad, now we're going to multiply 4-digit numbers. Too bad, now we're going to multiply decimals. And then we start wondering why that student can't do it. And so just that, you know, we call it flip, you know, these teachers, they essentially flipped the classroom. Just with the videos, it was a pretty profound change. They'd used technology to turn the classroom to something that was actually more interactive, more human. And I do want to emphasize, we think that that's just almost a baby step in the direction that we'd like to see, because that does make the classroom more interactive, and it does allow students to pause and repeat and learn from each other. What it doesn't do just yet, though, is it still forces everyone to learn in that lockstep pace, where we only have 2 weeks to learn this concept. Whatever, you get 80%, I get 90%, we move on to the next concept. It still does not allow that full everyone being able to learn at their own pace. And I'll talk about in a little bit what we're doing to enable that type of thing. So anyway, fast forward to 2009, the site had taken off, and I was frankly having trouble focusing on my day job. It was when our portfolio manager was looking away. We did all right. So some of y'all might have been investors, so it wasn't. But it was I would literally sneak and do a video. And actually, this is on a slightly unrelated note. It was during the financial crisis. We parked all of our money in cash because we just didn't. The rules were changing every day, and myself and a lot of other people I knew were just reading the Federal Reserve Act over and over again, and which is a great piece of reading if any of y'all are. But by doing that, I learned a lot, and then I saw a lot of what was happening. You watch CNBC, you hear a lot of what officials were saying. You're like, I don't know if that's exactly right, or they're saying it, but I don't think people are exactly getting what they're saying. And so then I just started making a bunch of videos on the financial crisis too, and it's an interesting aside. And I got a letter from 2 separate news outlets, I won't say which ones, that said that they were using my videos before reporting on the crisis. And I was actually on one of them to explain a little bit about insolvency versus illiquidity and all the rest, and we can talk about that. It's a separate topic. But by 2009, it was hard to focus on my day job, and I set it up as a not-for-profit with really the mindset that this is a chance to become maybe a new type of institution. That at every inflection point in history, when America was founded, and it wasn't even the United States yet. You had your Ivy League institutions that started to start and flourish. When you had the Industrial Revolution in America, you had your MITs and your Stanfords come into the equation. And we are at another inflection point. It's obvious that we are. It's probably the biggest inflection point out of all of them. And wouldn't it be cool if these videos not only reach the hundreds of thousands or millions of students today? What if they reach 10 million or a billion students in 100 years or 200 years? And maybe there's an opportunity to start a new type of institution, the next MIT or the next Stanford, which, when I was alone in my closet seemed a little delusional, but, I guess you got to be a little bit. And so we started as a not-for-profit. 2009, I kind of took the leap of faith, saying, hopefully someone notices. Someone notices that there's a huge social ROI here, that you let this guy make some videos, not only do those videos help those kids now, they can help millions of kids in the future. And I think like all things, and I've met many of you guys, a lot of entrepreneurs in the room, and you could probably empathize with this. About 9 months into this leap of faith, I started updating my resume. And but then I had a little PayPal link where I was getting $20 donations, $30 donations, things like that. And all of a sudden I got a $10,000 donation from a woman named Ann Doerr, the wife of John Doerr, very famous venture capitalist in the Valley. I didn't know it was the same Doerr when she gave the donation, but it was a $10,000 donation. I had never met her. So I immediately emailed her. I was like, well, thank you very much. This is the largest donation we've ever gotten. If we were a physical school, you would now have a building named after you. Which is a very good deal, by the way. I mean, I hear Stanford, it's like 10 million, 50, I don't know what it is, but it's a good deal. She immediately emailed back, said, how are you supporting yourself? And and as polite of a way possible, I said, I'm not. So we had lunch, and then on the way back from lunch, she wired $100,000, and so it was a good day. And that was kind of the beginning. That was, we're talking about inflection points. That was the inflection point in the history of the Khan Academy. That was literally a little over a year ago. Then in July of last year, I was running this little summer camp where I had these 5th through 7th graders. I had 5 of them playing a game of Risk, and then I had 20 of them trading securities based on the outcome of the game of Risk, which is a good exercise. It was amazing. It was amazing how many of them were trading above any irrational price that could have. There was one 5th grader who invented shorting, or reinvented actually naked shorting. So it was a little. But I was running. It was kind of this crazy thing. Literally, it was like a trading floor with a bunch of middle school students. And I got a text message from Ann saying that she was at the Aspen Ideas Festival, and she was in a room of 2,000 people. And Bill Gates is on stage right now, talking about me. And my reaction was, that prankster Ann, this isn't. I went home and I actually saw some people had tweeted about it. So I was like, oh, this is real. And I later saw the footage, and he talked about how this was something he was excited about. His kids use it, how he uses it, which immediately made me think I should, edit some of those videos. So I didn't know how. But it was kind of strange because I was like, well, what do I do now? Do I call him, or is his number available? But then 2 weeks later, I got a call from his chief of staff and says, if you have the time, Bill would love to meet. I was looking at my calendar at the time, and it was completely blank. And I said, oh yeah, I think I could sneak. Wednesday, 2:45, maybe we can do something. And it was really at the exact same time that Google also approached, and they brought me in. We're based in Mountain View. Google's based in Mountain View, so I just drove over, and they brought me into this kind of conference room with about 20 people in it, and it was I was a one guy literally operating out of my closet at the time, and they just said, oh, a lot of our kids are using your stuff, and they just point blank said, what would you do with $2 million? And I said, is this in an education context, or is this just an open, I've got needs, it's not. But it was about education, and so the conversation with Google and the conversation with the Gates Foundation was, what would we do with support? I said, I would build out that primitive software that I started with. I'd continue to make videos. We could translate the videos and actually for fairly cheap into the world's major languages. But I would build out that software platform that I started building for my cousins so that we can deliver on the promise. Our mission statement is a world-class education for anyone, anywhere. So it wasn't just, cool videos in English for a lot of people. It's an education. And so we wanted to push the envelope of what did that mean? What can you deliver online in a scalable way? And so I said, well, what if we have this exercise platform, and it's like a game, and it has a knowledge map, and you start from one place and you just keep going, and they thought it was a pretty good idea. And then we could push the frontier of getting the students to learn from each other, teach each other, use the analytics to superpower everything. And so after the funding, this is what we've started working on. This is our knowledge map, and all of this is free on our site, khanacademy.org. And all of the dashboards I'm going to show you that the teachers are using now, this is all available. It's just the pilots we're doing it with. We have more interaction with those teachers. This knowledge map, that top node there, that little green star you see, that's basic addition. So you start there. It's like 3 plus 5, 1 plus 2, 2 plus 3. And it'll keep giving you as many problems as you need until you get 10 in a row. And we're tweaking that proficiency metric, and we could talk more about that. But once you show that you're proficient there, it then moves you to the next idea. And so the paradigm here, just to compare it to what we talked about before, instead of holding fixed the amount of time you have to learn something, and then the variable being how well you know it, we're saying, let's make the variable how long it takes you to master a concept, and let's make the fixed thing that you really master the concept, that you're not going to move on after understanding something only 80% or 70%. I mean, in classrooms today, a student can fail an exam. Oh, thanks. You can fail an exam right now, and you're still expected to move to the next concept. And so we said, let's let everyone work at their own pace and master before moving on. And so that's what our knowledge map looked like. Actually, several months ago, it has about 60 concepts on that picture. We're now pushing 200. And by the end of this year, it's going to be K through calculus comprehensive. And then we're going to build off from there. So you literally start at 1 plus 1, and you can get to a vector calculus. We're going to add physics, chemistry, anything that can really be built off of this type of a tree. And this is what one of those modules look like. As you see, it'll just give you the problem. If you know how to do it, it's great. You get some feedback. If you don't know how to do it, it'll give you the steps for that particular problem. If you have no idea what this problem is, or maybe you know how to do it, but you don't know necessarily why, or you don't have the conceptual understanding of what it's all about, you can click the video. So the videos are still a big part of it, but they really complement this idea of every student learning at their own pace. And you see there's some game mechanics. Students can get badges and all the rest while they're working on this. This next one, this just shows a more advanced topic. That's kind of a pre-calculus topic right there, just to give you an idea of some of them are more visual, less visual. We're also looking to integrate simulations. We just got contacted by some physics teachers who wanted to build on this platform. So we're hoping that beyond just what we're working on, that educators and researchers view us as a resource. Like, wait, why don't we just, instead of doing a one-off application, why don't we just build a simple module for Khan Academy, and then it immediately gets in front of 3 million students. And we've told this to multiple researchers. Yeah, we'll do some, the same same science that Amazon does to make it more likely that you buy a book. You know, they can take a button and for 5% of their users make that button green and see what happens, or make the font a little bit bigger and say, wow, we get more transactions when that happens. We can do the same thing, but now we can do it for education. We can say, hey, maybe you've thought of a new way for people to get practice on fractions, or a new video. Why don't we show that for 10% of the population and see what happens, see how they progress, see how good their understanding is. And so that's the kind of thing we're hoping to do here. So we started this off, literally we got our office space and our funding and everything, our initial funding about a year ago exactly. And then, you know what, it's just all of these things just started to fall into place. We got approached by a local school district, Los Altos, saying, hey, we'd like to meet you guys. And so we met with the school board, and they asked us, what would you do with a 5th grade class? And we said, well, let's just, they're unlikely to do anything we tell them, so let's just do something crazy. Let's say, well, we would have every student working at their own pace, at their own time, mastering concepts before they move on. And what we would like classroom time to be is the teacher doing focus interventions with students, or getting other students to do focus interventions with each other. And we kind of said, look, we'd like to see a reality where student to teacher ratio, that is an important metric, but what's the more meaningful metric is student to valuable time with the teacher ratio. So you could have a 5-to-1 student-teacher ratio, but if the teacher just comes in and gives a one-size-fits-all lecture and there's no interaction, there's no mentorship, there's not much value there. But if you could have larger than a 5-to-1 ratio, but if every moment of the teacher's time is spent sitting next to students, mentoring students to become teachers of other students, then all of a sudden you have something interesting happen. And so we said we'd like to see a reality where the teacher walks around and spends every moment of their time directly interacting with students, diagnosing what's wrong with them, helping other students help each other. And so, I remember when we walked out into the parking lot, I had now been joined by a buddy from college, and we're like, oh, they were very nice, but there's no way they're going to want to do this. And 2 days later, they're like, can we start after Thanksgiving? 2 5th grade classes and 2 7th grade classes. And so we started that pilot. And so what I'm showing you in this slide right here, this is actually one of the dashboards, or one of the views, one of the reports for one of the classrooms in that pilot last year. And every row here is one of the students in the class. Every column here is one of those concepts that you saw on that knowledge map. And the paradigm here is if that cell is green, it means that student has already become proficient at that concept. If it's blue, it means that they're working on it, but there's no need to worry. And if it's red, it means that student is stuck. They've watched the video, they've done a ton of problems, and they're still having difficulty. And so what's happened in that Los Altos classroom is teacher walks around, sees this is in real time, so she can literally, or he or she can literally see things show up red, turn green, turn blue in real time while they're in class. And whenever they see a red student, they can either, if there's 2 red students in that same concept, they can group them together and do maybe a small group session. If there's other students who are already proficient in that concept, get those students to maybe be the first line of attack. It's kind of crazy, but in one of these 5th grade classrooms, one of the teachers, Richard Julian, he spent a significant amount of his time mentoring 5 5th graders in the class who became his default TAs, who were just the kids that the other kids went to for help, and he started to teach them to be empathetic, to communicate better, to not talk too fast. Actually, how do you actually mentor your fellow peers? And so we've done this, and we talked about flipping the classroom earlier, but we call this kind of even a deeper flip, because now it's not just making the classroom more interactive, and it really is a lot more interactive. I'll show you a video of this in a second. But it's now liberating the classroom so that every student can work at their own pace. Every student can master concepts. And it's exciting, and there are challenges. In the same 5th grade classroom, there will be students who are doing 4th grade math, as they should be because they need to build their foundations, and there will be students doing 9th or 10th grade math. And all of a sudden, it really kind of sets the bar high in terms of the amount of context switching. But I think for the teachers we've worked with, they really loved that ability to really dig in deep. Now, we didn't want these teachers just to have this dashboard and say, oh, red, they're having trouble. We wanted to arm them with the same data that, frankly, I had when I was an analyst at a hedge fund. So this is a report that a student can see on themselves, or that a teacher can see on a student, and it tells the teacher exactly what the student's been doing the last 30 days, 7 days, 365 days, whatever range. Each bar is a day. Light green is time spent on exercises. Dark blue is time spent on videos. If they highlight any of them, if they scroll over any of them, it gives them more depth. Exactly how much time on which videos, where were they paused, where were they repeated, what badges, what accomplishments did they earn. This tells the teacher, and a lot of these, it wasn't us just going into the classroom saying, this is the way you should do it. We're like, look, we have some ideas. You guys are the teachers. You guys are in here every day. Why don't you tell us what features you want in order to enable this type of a model? And so this is a report that one of the teachers kind of spec'd out for us, where she wanted to know what the students were focused on. So that inner pie chart says the videos, the outer pie chart says which exercises, and if you click on any of them, it gives you more granular data, problem by problem. Each bar is a problem that student did. Red is wrong, blue is right. The height is how long it took them. The question mark says that they used the hints to see the steps of that problem. There's a little video icon that's behind that little box right there that shows that the student watched the video at that point. And actually, since then, we've actually added, so if you click on any of those bars, not only do you see the particular problem that the student didn't know, but you can actually see how they interacted with that problem. Which choices did they answer wrong or right first? How did they do it? How long each of those steps took them? And eventually, and we won't have this yet, we actually, once we have the storage and the bandwidth to do it, we want the student to be able to do their work on the site and actually capture that so that the student could click there and actually see a video of the student's work. So it's not just the snapshot that a teacher traditionally sees of just the final, but you can actually see them going through the process. So one thing that, we can talk about differentiated learning, and people have been talking about it for a long time, and it seems like a great idea. But this chart right here was an eye-opener, frankly, for everyone involved. We're kind of trained to assume that there's just certain people that are meant to be, math people, science people, and there are certain people that aren't. And this kind of puts that into question, or at least maybe puts it into more question than we're used to thinking about it. When we started these classrooms, every student working at their own pace, like any classroom, there was a group of students that they just started racing ahead. There was a group of students that were in the middle, and there was a group of students that were a little bit behind. And in a traditional model, especially if you were looking to track them, you'd give them a snapshot exam, and you'd say, okay, those students, they're our advanced students. These students are our slow students. Let's track them in a slower math class. But what we're seeing is when we let them work at their own pace, every week, every month, some subset of those middle or slower students, after they're able to spend enough time on some core concept, they're able to race ahead. And that blue graph right there is one of those students. So the horizontal axis is days on the site, working on this within their classroom. The vertical axis is the number of modules they've completed. So each of those lines is a trajectory of one of the students in the class. And you see that blue student, day 10, day 20, kind of below average, kind of middling. He spent a long, essentially 10 days on one concept right over there until he really internalized it. And then after that, by day 70, he was the second best student in the class. And we're seeing this over and over and over and over again, that every few months we look at one of these classrooms, we're like, wow, who's that student? They're the top student in the class. And if you look at their data 2 months ago, they were the bottom, or they're the third from the bottom in the classroom. And so you really don't know who are those students that are going to shine once they master the fundamentals. Now, one assumption, whenever people talk about technology in the classroom, automated learning or something like that, videos, things like that, people assume that this is, advocating some type of Vulcan reality, some type of, Borg neural stunts. And the one thing that we want to emphasize is we're not saying that technology is cool, therefore you have to use it. What we're saying is learning at your own pace is cool. Differentiated learning is cool. Giving information to teachers is cool. That students actually interacting with each other in a classroom is cool. These are our goals, and we're going to use any tools available to us, including technology and videos and whatever, to enable those things. And so I'm going to show a little clip of a video from one of the classrooms that shows at least the energy level. And I'm dead serious. These kids did not want to go to recess after their math class. So this is one of the...
From Mountain View, California, NBC's Kristen Welker has our story tonight.
What makes fifth graders cheer? Would you believe math?
Yes. I'm starting to really like math now.
These kids are learning with the help of Khan Academy, an online school.
You got it right. Good job.
Videos that are interactive and fun, explaining difficult concepts in a conversational way.
And what that video did not capture, it did capture the energy level there, but it did not capture, and some of y'all I've met out here have actually visited some of these classrooms. There's actually a lot of students walking around. There's students going to a whiteboard saying what they need help on, other students saying what they can help on, and so they're pairing up with each other, the teachers walking around. So it's a really, really, really interactive experience. And there's actually a funny story that came out of that news story. That reporter, she saw a fifth grader doing trigonometry, doing basic trigonometry problems. The reporter was impressed. So she sits down next to the 5th grader, and she says, so do you think this is 5th grade math? And the girl got a mischievous grin on her face. She goes, no, I think it's 6th grade. This is good. She's in for a pleasant surprise, I think. We did the pilot. We did the pilot. I'll look at the. We did the pilot last year, and obviously you saw the energy level. The teachers loved it. The students loved it. Anecdotally, it was very positive. You could see firsthand that there were students in the class that were going into algebra and trigonometry and above, but we and the teachers want to say, well, is this really working? In a measurable way. Anecdotally, it was very powerful, and just that by itself is, at least if it didn't do any damage, that might be worth doing it. But is it actually causing some improvement? And so this wasn't a rigorous study, but we were curious to see, well, what were these students' test scores at the end of the year? And what was amazing was we did the pilot with 2 classes, 4 classes, 2 5th grade classes, 2 7th grade classes. The 5th grade classes were standard Los Altos classrooms. It's actually a high-performing school district. It's a affluent area. And that 5th grade classroom, they did kind of as expected, 96% at or above grade level, which isn't that different than the district, which was like 92%. And we feel, frankly, the 5th grade assessment just kind of, we had a ceiling effect, where that student who was doing trigonometry, she could not show that on the 5th grade assessment. But that was fine. It definitely was not doing damage at the 5th grade level. The 7th grade data was really interesting, because even though this is an affluent district, the 2 7th grade classes that used it were, they called it an algebra readiness class, which was really a remedial math class. And it was the only 2 remedial math classes in the district. And these were students, frankly, from the other side of El Camino. The students whose many of them come from families that don't speak English. Some of them had learning disabilities. And we frankly were worried about this, because we're like, hey, this was just an informal pilot. We don't want the data to, we don't want it to kill us too early. We want to work on this a little bit. But we're like, okay, we'll just look at the data and see what happens. And so this slide, and I'll bring it back to the slide, this shows the data from those 7th grade classes. The top bar right there is how they performed on the California Standards Test in 2010. You see 23%, that red section right there, were proficient, were at grade level. 47% basic, 23% below basic, 6% far below basic. Then you fast forward to the next year. So they'd only been doing this for like 6 or 7 months. And now you have, and so there's a couple of interesting things here. So first of all, you have no students who are far below basic anymore. Another interesting thing is you now have 41% of the students who are proficient or advanced now. And that second part is really interesting. So we went from 23% proficient to 46%. So we've doubled the number that are at grade level in 6 months. But that 6% is fascinating, because this is something that we never expected, or that the school system never expected. And we don't think, they've never heard stories like this anywhere. There's 6% of the students were now advanced. These were students who were placed in a remedial math class in 7th grade. And after 6 months, they are now advanced. They have leapfrogged ahead of students who were not placed in the remedial math class. And so that's the data that Los Altos said, this is, we saw the 5th grade data, it's definitely not doing any harm, and it's probably doing a lot of good, especially if we gave them assessments that would test 7th or 8th or 9th grade math. But this was what really kind of blew them and blew us away. So that's why Los Altos has now gone district-wide in 5th and 6th grade, and a few of the 7th and 8th grade classes as well. Now, the one thing I want to finish up is it actually isn't just for kids, so to speak. You saw the videos. There's content for college-level things as well. And I want to finish with a video that we received literally about, I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago. It was at the beginning of summer, from a gentleman who, we get a lot of letters. I read some of them earlier. But this was one of the more touching videos. And I edited it down. It was a 10-minute video originally. We have it on our site. But I just want to watch the video and just think about what would have happened to this guy had he not had the outlet. And I want to say from the get-go, he deserves 95% of the credit. It was really his tenacity that got him to the place that he's going to talk about. But it really, we show this video to the team every now and then when we really want to just get motivated and work a little bit harder.
My name is Mark Halberstadt. Growing up, I was really always a C student. I think I was really pretty much always pretty pitiful in school. I don't think I've ever gotten higher than a B+ in any math class ever, particularly. I pretty much thought that the only thing I was good enough to do in college was major in music, and I went off and I got a music degree in saxophone, and had a great time doing it. I really enjoyed it a lot, but I sort of almost felt that it was more I was getting it because I was terrible at everything else. Kind of worked as a saxophone player for a few years, but sort of knew that I really, wanted to do more, I guess. I knew that I really wanted to, really what I wanted to do was do electrical engineering, do more hands-on with math and science types of things. The last thing that I remember seeing in my mathematical career in high school and the last thing that I remember completely not getting was trig identities. So I went to YouTube and I did a search for trig identities, and the Khan Academy was the first thing that popped up. Watched a bunch of videos in the trig playlist to kind of get caught up to speed. I watched all the videos in the calculus playlist. I watched all the videos in the physics playlist. Watched a bunch of videos on dividing decimals and even on subtraction by borrowing. I watched a lot of videos on arithmetic. And anyway, that was in 2007. I did that until the fall of 2010. And in the fall of 2010, I took a leap and I decided to go back to school and get into a degree program. And I went to Temple University, majored in electrical engineering, getting a second bachelor's. And I guess I'm making this because I just finished my first full year at Temple. I got perfect scores on both of my calc final exams and also on my chemistry final exam. I ended calculus, chemistry, both calculus classes, Calc 1 and 2, and chemistry, with an average higher than 100%. There are some Khan Academy videos that I probably listened to the same concept over 20 or 30 times. And there is no tutor in the world I could have paid to have sat next to me and repeated the same thing over 20 or 30 times without at least them getting a little bit judgmental, or at least them thinking like, oh, well, this guy really is never going to get this concept and he should just give up. Where the understanding really happened was watching those videos and also working through the Khan Academy software and everything. The impact for me in my life, I really see it growing exponentially over the next 20 or 30 years. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Great, yeah. So yeah, so I mean, that's a pretty powerful video for us too and our team. And I'd love to now just get any questions or thoughts or anything else that any of y'all would like to share. Questions? Yeah, right over there. I think there's some microphones there, or I could repeat the question, either one. If you want to just say it, I could repeat it.
First of all, thank you on behalf of my grandkids.
Oh, thanks. So your kids use, the grandkids use Khan Academy? Oh, very good. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Also, thank you for me for restoring my self-confidence. This morning I felt so underdressed.
This is my formal wear. This is my.
My question is interactivity while doing the problem.
Yes.
For example, solving a polynomial quadratic equation. I removed the parentheses wrong, and I have to review the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wrong answer. Is there some way of connecting subparts of a problem with the review?
Yeah. So the question is if when a student's doing something and they're having trouble with a subpart of a problem, or maybe they got the parentheses wrong, or just on the one step, why did they get it wrong? So there's a couple of things here. I mean, one of the videos, YouTube forced this on me, kind of this 10-minute form factor, which does make it pretty granular, so you can kind of jump and search. But that's where the software exercises, where we're trying to do as much as possible. So right now, if someone's working through a 7-step algebra problem, and at the end of it, they just got the wrong answer, and they're like, where did I go wrong? It seems like I did every step right. They can click the hints, and the hints go step by step through that problem for that particular problem. And so they can actually see where exactly they went wrong on that problem. So that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to make that as good as possible so that it is not only there, but it's also readable by the student, that they can understand it. And I think the next layer, and this is something that we're just starting to explore, is Like you saw in the classroom, the students are helping each other. The teachers are there to help each other, help the students as well. We want to start exploring the 3.5 million students on Khan Academy being able to connect with each other so that they can get past each other's weaknesses and say, hey, wait, I just don't get what happened. And some of that's already happening very organically. Someone says, hey, thanks for the video, but I don't exactly get what you said at minute whatever. And someone else says, oh, you should go watch this video. He covered that before. Or this is what he means, and they give a link to some other site. So we're trying to explore. We think we're very early stages, but we're trying to get there so that we can do that type of thing.
Can we all give a round of applause to Saul Khan?